Here we go, YouTube video. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Evan Seach. I help companies like yours run and scale ads. I've been doing it for 7 years and have worked with some of the biggest names in the coaching space, info product, B2B, SaaS world. I even work with real estate funds and syndications to help them raise millions of bucks through Facebook ads. And today I'm going to talk about how to test Facebook ads. So it's going to be our complete creative testing framework from A to Z. Okay, we're going to make this very simple for you and very actionable. All right, so first off, the actual foundation. You need to understand what you're actually testing. Okay, so we want to go beyond just random creative testing, right? A lot of people overcomplicate creative testing or just don't do it in a systematic way. So they just start throwing things at the algorithm, they'll start throwing things at campaigns, and they don't actually iterate off winners, they don't actually pull data from their tests, etc. So all that we're going to clear up today. Now, most Facebook advertisers approach creative testing backwards, by the way, too. So they throw random hooks, pretty videos and everything and generic messaging at their audience, hoping that something will stick. Okay, so it's like a spray and pray type thing. There's no systems behind it. This shotgun approach wastes ad budgets and delivers inconsistent results. So professional creative testing that we're going to go over today isn't about testing random elements. It's about testing strategic different messaging buckets, and we're going to go over what that is here. So messaging buckets, I'm going to refer to that a lot in this video, but essentially messaging buckets are strategic audience segments that represent different scenarios within your target market. So instead of creating one generic ad for everybody, we're developing specific messages that speak directly to distinct groups within our audience, okay? And each messaging bucket addresses a unique situation, pain point, or desire that drives people to seek your solution, okay? Now, all of that being said, let me tie this all in, okay? So what you want to think about initially when you're running ads is who's my target audience, okay? Say, for example, my target audience are agency owners who are struggling to scale ads, okay? I can create different messaging buckets that are basically different groups of ideas for that specific target audience. So for example, we have that overarching idea of agency owners who are struggling to scale ads. Well, one messaging bucket could be they've tried hiring agencies in the past and they just got burnt, right? Another one could be they've scaled their ads to $500 a day, $1,000 a day, but every time they try to increase their budget, they sacrifice ROAS and profitability. That's a different messaging bucket that still feeds into the overarching ICP, the overarching actual demographic and person that I'm trying to reach. We can have another messaging bucket that, for example, could be this same person. They've tried courses, they've tried coaching programs, they've hired mentors, they've tried all these crazy ad strategies, but they can't get their ads to scale, right? These are 3 independent messaging buckets. So buckets of actual ad ideas. And these messaging buckets, what I'm going to show you to do later is how we actually structure our creative test. So we'll have these different messaging buckets, and within those buckets, we create ad ideas that feed into that bucket, okay? So it's all gonna click later and make sense if it hasn't yet. But the real goal of creative testing is essentially this, your objective isn't just to generate clicks or engagement metrics, those vanity metrics, okay? The entire goal is to find messaging that resonates with your target audience and scales profitably. We wanna find that messaging bucket that just hits with our audience and scales. That's what we're trying to do here. You're searching for that sweet spot where your messaging hits the majority of people in a specific segment and makes them think, yep, that's exactly what I'm experiencing right now. You have the solution that I need. This distinction separates professional advertisers from amateurs, okay? Professionals understand that scalable creative testing requires systematic messaging validation, not random creative experiments, okay? When you find messaging that truly resonates, you can pour significant budget behind it with confidence, knowing that it will continue converting at scale. So with creative testing, let's dive into kind of a step-by-step structure here, okay? So first is you want to define your target audience foundation, right? Again, this is the critical foundation. Every successful creative testing campaign begins with a crystal clear audience definition. You must know exactly who you're targeting and understand their underlying mass desire. This foundation determines everything downstream. Your messaging buckets, your ad variations, even how you position the offer, and your campaign structure, they all depend on this initial clarity of who I'm actually trying to go after in the first freaking place and what they're dealing with, what problems they have, what their dream states are, etc. So consider this example. Your target audience, again, are agency owners who want to scale their business with paid advertising, and you're selling Facebook ad management, right? So the real work begins is when you dig deeper than the surface level demographic, right? We don't just want to sling ads out there that are you looking to scale your business with ads? No, we want to get very deep below that and go below the surface and try to come up with different pain points and contextual real-time situations these people are dealing with, and also paint some dream states for them. That's what we're trying to do. So it's going to make sense here in a sec. But first, what we want to do is uncover the underlying mass desire. So surface level targeting focuses on, again, agency owners who want to scale ads. But what do they actually really want? Like, what's their reason? Like, look, I run an ad agency. If I didn't have to run ads, I'd be cool with it. Like, if I could just make money, freaking come out of thin air and just like spawn cash everywhere without actually having to run ads, that'd be awesome. So like, look, my mass desire is financial growth, business stability, and the freedom that comes from predictable revenue streams like ads. I don't actually want ads. I want freaking money. Like, that's what I want. So this underlying mass desire becomes the emotional foundation for your messaging, okay? And when you're coming up with these messaging buckets, you want to think of, who are these people actually? What are their demographics? So who are they professionally and personally? What are some emotional drivers they have? Like, what do they truly desire beyond the obvious, okay? Beyond, I want to make money and stuff. What are the true desires that they have, right? Something like business stability, a predictable pipeline of leads. That's another thing that's like beyond that surface level. What are their current frustrations? What's keeping them up at night? What are the problems they're dealing with? What are the current scenarios that they're in, right? Are they struggling with bad show rates, right? That's something very specific versus just saying, hey, your ads suck. It's, hey, are you struggling with getting the right people to show up to sales calls and convert? That's very specific. You can also paint the success vision. What's their ideal outcome? What does it look like, okay? With this foundation and this understanding of what your actual target audience wants, what real-time problems they're dealing with, pain points, what desires they have, what goals, all of this, you now have a clear understanding of your target audience and can then ideate messaging buckets and ad angles off of those things, which we're gonna get into here. So next what we wanna do is start to create those strategic messaging buckets. So again, what are messaging buckets? Now that we, again, know our target ICP, we know what they want, we know the problems they're dealing with, we know what they're struggling with right now, we know their goals, okay? We wanna start to make messaging buckets. So messaging buckets are individualized, unique subsets of your overall target audience that you craft into separate campaigns or ad sets to test and speak to directly through your ads. So you think of them as like specific scenarios within your broader audience. So different situations that drive people to need your product or service in the first place. You're not creating surface level segments like people who want ads, okay? Instead, you're identifying specific circumstances that somebody who wants ads, for example, or wants to scale their business through ads are dealing with. What specific circumstances they find themselves, challenges, and context that create urgency for your solution. Each messaging bucket represents a different why now scenario too. So here's some examples, right? So let's continue with our agency owner example and agency owners who want to scale ads, okay? Here are 4 distinct messaging buckets that you can create with that same target audience in mind. So first is people that have scaling struggles with ads. This could be agency owners who are running ads but struggling to scale them past $300 to $500 a day in spend. They know ads work, but they can't crack profitable scaling. Bucket 2 could be ad anxiety, right? Agency owners who know ads are essential, but they're afraid to start just due to past failures or fear of wasting money. Bucket 3 could be an organic plateau. So these can be agency owners who have built their business through organic content, but they've maxed out all organic channels and need paid acquisition. Bucket 4 could be outreach fatigue, right? Agency owners who are relying on cold outreach, but experiencing declining response rates and need to pivot to ads. So do you notice real quick how all 4 of these, right? These are all people and agency owners who want to scale their business with ads. They all are. They all feed back into that same person, that same demographic trait, that same desire, right? But we're just breaking it out and we're speaking in different contextual scenarios and different problems and all this stuff that they're dealing with. We're not just saying surface level. We're getting below the surface and saying, if somebody is an agency owner and wants to scale ads, what problems are they dealing with? What dream states do they want? What desires do they have, right? What stuff are they struggling with right now? And then we make these buckets. And then within these buckets, in the next step, which I'll show you, we're gonna actually write full ads within these buckets, and that's how we're gonna test them. That's how we do creative testing. So basically, we're gonna have these buckets here, right, with individual ads in them. We're gonna run them, and you're gonna see maybe bucket 3 just sucks. It doesn't resonate with a lot of people. Maybe bucket 4 does okay, but all the stuff in bucket 1, like the agency owners who are currently running ads but struggling to scale them past $300 to $500 a day, they're converting, they're booking calls, they're buying. So we want to continue to make new ads that fit within this bucket. And again, just notice the specifics in each bucket. Like, we're not just saying agency owners who want ads. Each bucket addresses a specific scenario, current situation, and emotional state. This specifically allows you to craft messaging that feels personally relevant to each segment. Now, step 3 is we're going to start to develop real-time contextual scenarios. This is where we're going to start to like ideate our ads. So the power of contextual messaging, right? After defining your messaging buckets, you must identify the real-time scenarios each audience segment is experiencing. These aren't general pain points. They're specific current situations happening in your target prospect's lives right now. The goal is to make the prospect think, how did you know exactly what I'm going through? How do you know what I'm thinking? Like, you guys know that where if you're like, hey, I want an iPad or something, and you have your phone over here. I actually didn't know I had $1 sitting in my phone case. That's funny. Anyways, say for example, you guys all know that you'll have your phone around, you'll be like, yo, I want an iPad, right? And then guess what happens next? When you scroll through Facebook, you get an ad for like an iPad or something like that. That's what we're trying to create with our ads here. That's why we're trying to get these messaging buckets and get very contextual with our messaging, because we want people to open the app and be like, yo, this guy articulated my problem that I'm dealing with right now. I was literally just thinking that. That's gonna get your ads to convert, right? A great example of this is one of our clients. We switched a lot of his messaging to go hyper contextual to people who are using Go High Level as their CRM and not actually getting conversions through their funnel. That was hyper specific. Literally the hook was something like, if you're using GHL and you're not getting conversions through your ads in your funnel, you're probably doing something wrong and have leaks in your actual GHL system. That was hyper specific and relevant versus an ad where it just says, hey, if you're running ads and you have a funnel and you're not getting results, you probably just have leaks in your CRM. Like, that right there isn't hyper contextual. So that's what we want to do. Keep that frame in mind when you're writing ads. Here's another example in the weight loss industry. Like, say you come across an ad that's super general and says, hey, are you over 50 and want to lose weight? I mean, come on, like, it's just way too broad, okay? A contextual ad would say something like, are you over 50, carrying an extra 30 pounds, and have been trying for the past 5 years to crack the weight loss code, but nothing seems to work? Like, that's super contextual. It's a lot deeper, and it's not just surface level. And here's the difference that contextual messaging makes, right? Generic messaging, are you an agency owner who wants to scale with ads? It's broad and forgettable. It applies to thousands of people, some who are qualified, some who are unqualified, some who are broke, some who have money, etc. It creates no emotional connection. It's easy to scroll past. Right here in contextual messaging is, are you stuck at $500 a day in ad spend? And every time you try to scale past that, your ROAS tanks and you're back to square one. That's hyper specific and memorable. Applies to an exact situation. It's going to pull someone through the funnel because it's like, this dude knows what he's talking about. This guy can solve my exact problem that I'm dealing with right now. It creates instant recognition and it demands attention. Now, don't worry, because you might be saying right now, well, this one seems way too specific. Like, why don't I do this? Because I'm going to reach more people. That's why, again, we test a bunch of messaging buckets. So you can hit all these things. You can stay contextual and still hit a broad amount of people. And also, these ads just work better. These don't, okay? These used to. Now they don't. You got to get hyper contextual with your messaging. So the secret to winning ads is making prospects feel truly understood. You're not talking to everyone. You're talking directly to them in their current situation. That's the difference. This level of specificity, I can't fucking do that. This level of specific advertising separates professional advertisers from those who rely on generic messaging and hope for the best, okay? This is going to basically be how you can get more qualified leads too, because you can speak and create ads around specific problems and dream states that hyper qualified people are experiencing. For example, this could bring in any poor agency owner, right? If somebody's at $1,000 a month, sure, they want to scale with ads. This could bring in anybody. This right here is literally only calling out people who are trying to scale past $500 a day in spend. Yes, it's going to reach, in theory, less people than this one, but you're going to get more qualified people, better closes, and a lower CAC as a result. Now, step 4 is we want to write multiple ad variations per messaging bucket. So now that we've broken out, for example, these different messaging buckets, within them, we want to make 3 to 5 ads within each one that still fit into that messaging bucket. So what we like to do is we like to write full ads. So the hook, the body, the CTA, fully through, okay? As we scale, we can do that whole variation where we make 5 hooks and splice them onto 2 bodies and everything. But initially, when we're testing messaging buckets, we like to put the work in and write full-fledged ads. We're not trying to cut corners here. And each ad variation within the messaging bucket targets a slightly different angle or sub-segment, okay? You're exploring different ways to communicate with the same core audience segment, testing various emotional triggers, pain points, and solution presentations. So for example, for the scaling struggles bucket, right? We made this one up here. For this bucket, let's go through some examples. So ad number one you could write could be more budget focused, right? You're probably stuck at the $300 to $500 range in ad spend and struggling to scale your agency offer past that. This is going to target more upmarket agency owners. Next one could be just time frustrated. Have you been running ads for your agency for the past 2 to 3 months but cannot get them to scale? This right here, right? This messaging bucket, we're targeting agency owners who are currently spending money on ads at a high rate and they can't scale it, okay? They know ads work, but they can't crack profitable scaling. This also feeds into that because we're literally saying, have you been running ads for the past 2 to 3 months? Okay. Next, we can do one that's ROAS focused. Like if you cannot get your ROAS above 3x for your agency offer, let me show you what you're doing wrong. This right here is more targeting like a metric focused owner, but again, it's still targeting people that are struggling to scale their ads and are currently running ads. Then you could have another one where, ads work, but for some reason they just aren't working for your agency. Let me tell you why. This right here is again, ads work. They know ads work. Okay, so they're like, yes, I know ads work, but for some reason they just aren't working for your agency. Again, implying that they're running ads in the first place and it's not working and scaling for them. So do you notice how each ad lives within the same messaging bucket, but approaches it from different angles? This variety allows you to capture different psychological states and communication preferences and also scenarios, sub-scenarios within the same audience segment, maximizing your chances for resonating with your prospects. So now how do we actually test it inside the ads manager? What do we do on the whole CBO, ABO type thing and all that, right? So this is what we personally do. Our campaign structures are very methodical. So our framework uses CBO in our testing and we scale with ABO, by the way. I have a whole nother video breaking that down. So we test in a CBO to test each messaging bucket systematically. This allows us to control variables and isolate what's actually driving performance. So what we do on the campaign level is we have a CBO with 1 to 3 ad sets in it. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but usually it's broad. We're testing between broad, lookalike, and cold interest stacks or something like that. Any combination of those ones, depending on the spend level and the ad account and the history and all that stuff. I have a full video breakdown if you click over here somewhere that will basically show you that whole structure and everything and how to target and all that. But basically we run a CBO with 1 to 3 ad sets in it. On the ad set level, we're testing again, lookalike, interest stack, or broad audience. And then on the creative level, this is where it comes into play. We use dynamic creative with 3 to 10 full ads hitting different messaging buckets. So we'll take a bucket and we'll put it in there. We'll take another bucket, we'll put it in there, right? So here's why this structure works, right? So if we're running 5 ads, right, in a dynamic creative test, we're just gonna take these ads that we wrote in one bucket and just put them in there. Now each ad set, lookalike, interest stack, or broad, they all have the same ads within them. So the only variable we're really testing is on the ad set level, which is the different audiences. Of course, we're testing the creatives within the dynamic creative set, but just like in this overall 3-step structure here, that's what we're testing. So very simple. CBO with 1 to 3 ad sets. These are the ad sets you can split test between. We run dynamic creative with 3 to 10 full ads in there. And each dynamic creative set is a separate messaging bucket, okay? This framework, by breaking out these messaging buckets into their own dynamic creative sets and pairing them with different audiences, provides clear performance data for each messaging bucket. When a CBO performs well, you know that specific messaging resonated with your audience and you could scale it confidently. When a CBO underperforms, you can turn it off knowing that that messaging bucket failed to convert and you can move on to the next messaging bucket. This structure eliminates guesswork. Instead of just wondering which element drove performance, you have clean data showing which messaging buckets work and which don't. This clarity allows for confident scaling and decisions and budget allocations. And now let's go into step 6 when you're actually writing the ads, okay? So we have to understand the market readiness levels. This is the stadium pitch concept by Chet Holmes. So look, not everyone in your target market is ready to buy at the same time. Like as much as you would love that, they're not. So understanding different market readiness levels popularized by Chet Holmes in The Ultimate Sales Machine is a crucial for effective messaging strategy. So when you're sitting down to write ads, you actually have to know who you're speaking to, right? We went through those exercises above, but now when you're writing the ads at any given time, your market can be broken down into these distinct readiness segments, and they all have dramatically different conversion potential. For example, right now, about 3% of your audience is basically ready to buy your thing. They're in market, they're ready to buy. They don't need to be convinced much. They just need to see your ad and be like, yeah, I trust this guy, let's go. I've been looking for an ad agency, for example. Then the other one is they're open to it. They need convinced more and stuff. So that's about 7%. And then you have another segment beyond that, which is basically people that are just not thinking about it. They're not thinking about running ads. They're running cold outreach and stuff right now. Ads haven't even really crossed their mind. Then you have the other one who they might be thinking about it, like, yeah, I get ads and all that. I think about them here and there, but I'm just not interested right now. And then you have the other segment where they're definitely not interested. Like, they're not even thinking, they don't even want to run ads. They think ads are a scam, you know, all this stuff. Maybe they're not even a business owner, okay? What you want to do when you're sitting down to write ads, you want to target the first 3%. First. You want to target the people who are ready to buy now. So initially, you want to focus your creative testing and your messaging and how you write your ads for people who are in market for your service right now, for people who want to buy the thing that you sell right now. It's going to make writing ads super easy and much clearer because you can literally picture somebody who wants your thing right now. If I'm selling ads, I can picture somebody who's scrolling through Facebook right now and wants to buy an ad agency service right now. That makes my ideation and my language that I use much clearer and easier to develop. These prospects want what you have, are ready to purchase, and just need to know that you're legitimate and won't scam them. This segment also offers the highest ROAS, shortest sales cycles, and easiest conversions. That's why we go there first, and then we start to go outwards. When writing ads for this segment, think, I'm speaking to somebody who wants my service right now. Again, this mindset shifts your messaging from trying to create desire to simply connecting with an existing desire. Don't approach this with scarcity thinking. There are always people who are ready to buy your product or service, and this pool refills daily. Okay, people move in and out of these different segments daily. These 7% who are more open to your service require much more education and longer sales cycles. The remaining 60% requires extensive nurturing, education, information, and budget to reach them and convert them. So master speaking to this little pocket of people first, the people who actually want the stuff you're selling, and then expand to other segments as your campaigns mature and budgets allow for longer conversion windows. Now, step 7, let's just go into a couple of different messaging examples by buying stage. So here are a couple real client examples that we've had. So let's say, for example, we have a client here that basically raises money for self-storage deals. So they try to get people to invest into self-storage developments and deals. So a buying now one could be, are you looking to diversify your portfolio into self-storage? Consider Blake Capital Group's latest deal with a projected 27% IRR, right? This messaging slams the offer directly on the table for people who are already researching self-storage investments. Then the open to it demographic is, are you an accredited investor looking for your next passive income investment, right? This requires more education about why self-storage in the body of the ad beats other investment options. This is like, hey, you're literally looking for this. We have a 27% IRR. That's our offer. It's a great deal. Check us out. This one is like, are you looking to invest in something? Well, we have this for you. Then a not thinking about it example, which takes a lot of time, money, and everything to actually convert them and reach them, is if you haven't considered investing before, let me tell you why self-storage will change your mind. This, again, demands extensive education, pre-framing, and significant ad spend investment to get somebody who's not thinking about investing in self-storage whatsoever, or literally hasn't even invested before, to actually say, yes, I want to invest passively in something, and I think self-storage is the way to go. So again, the differentiators across the segments is buying now, you're gonna see the highest ROAS when you dial in the creatives and the messaging, the easiest sales process, shorter sales cycles, lower ad spend required for conversions, and high conversion rates. The kind of open to it segment, which is like that 7% in the diagram, moderate ROAS, more education needed, a little bit longer sales cycles, higher ad spend required, and you have like medium kind of conversion rates. And as you go beyond that, that's where it just gets harder and harder and more expensive to reach people and convert people. So that right there is what you need to do to creative test. So first, sit down, think who your target audience is, create some messaging buckets for them, write 3 to 5 ads within each messaging bucket, run the ads, see what scales, see what doesn't, and just remember as you're writing these ads, speak to people who are ready to buy your thing right now. That's gonna make the messaging much easier and convert a lot better. And if you want us to handle all of this for you, we can build, install, and launch a paid ad system completely done for you for a one-time payment in 14 days or less. And I have the link below in the description there. If you also want us to run your ads on a done for you basis, every single month, I have another link down there for you. And if you have any questions, you can hit me up on Instagram @EvanSeach, Twitter @EvanSeach, or just drop it in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one.